Hi guys, welcome to Rainer Stop. It is, I was gonna say it's Wednesday, but it's Thursday.
It's Thursday, yep. We kind of changed it up on you guys a little bit, but most of our lives, actually all of them, will be on a Wednesday or Thursday going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so mark your calendars every week. Join us right here. My name is Chelsea. I'm the CEO at Consultment, a marketing agency here in Phoenix, Arizona, and the co-host here at Rainer Stop. This is Sheley.
Hi guys. Good to see you guys again. I'm so happy to be here. Sheley, Brien, I am the founder of Rainer Stop originally, and then partnering with my co-host here, Chelsea, to bring a new evolution of education and knowledge sharing to our industry. And I am so happy to be here today, especially with this topic. It's pretty fun and extremely relevant.
Very relevant. Many of you guys watched the Kentucky Derby. Let's start with that. How many of you did watch the Kentucky Derby? For those of you guys joining us live, let us know in the chat whether you watched the Kentucky Derby or not. 1, you watched the Kentucky Derby. 2, you did not. What we're going to talk about today is some of the parallels, lessons we can learn, interesting things that happened at the Kentucky Derby. I grew up in Reining. My dad was a reining horse trainer at the beginning part of my life. A judge and involved at the NRHA level. The second half of my life, reining is like my blood, sweat, and tears. It's what I love. But I certainly realize that there are a lot of things out there, whether that's other equine sports or other sporting industries in general, that we have a lot to learn from.
Yeah.
And I think we're, just Sheley and I have been talking about things from the Kentucky Derby over the past week or two as the industry is, of course, shifting and changing. And there's definitely, I think, some very interesting topics to glean from it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, and just to remind you guys, last week we had Brien on, and it was such an amazing talking about the spreads, why there is spread in a multiple judging system. And just as with Brien, this is our view, right? So this isn't Rainer Stop. We're not trying to have a conversation to persuade you or our audience, our Rainer Stop Nation, you guys watching us right now. We're not trying to persuade. What we are doing is just challenging. We're having insightful discussions. We're, opening our minds, looking outside. Is there things that we can learn from other industries that we can maybe bring to ours? And is there a better way of doing something that we already do, or are we doing it the best? That's what's so great about these discussions and the sharing of information is just how can we get better as an industry. So please know that we are not trying to persuade you one way or the other. In fact, we're going to look at both sides of it. But from reining, Chelsea just shared kind of her background with reining. Just so you guys know, I've been reining since, I've been riding for a very long time. I'm not going to tell you guys that I want to give away my age. But I have been doing exclusively reining since '98. I've had the opportunity to ride with some amazing trainers and have some great horses. It is my passion. I've done various other sports breeds, and this is something that's just so special. I am a boutique breeder, so I have a few mares. I do very selective breeding. I work with my trainers. We have a strategy. So I'm coming at this perspective from an exhibitor, also from a breeder, and just a lifelong reining enthusiast. So that's my perspective in this discussion today.
Yes, I love it. I also, over the last few weeks, we've been talking about things that are difficult, right? They have unique perspectives or maybe multiple angles. Today is going to be another one of those topics. A few of the things that we want to bring up do have multiple perspectives, and I really want to encourage all of you guys tuning in to let us know yours or ask questions that you might have about our perspectives or the way that we have seen or experienced things, because ultimately, I believe that this entire platform, as well as the conversations that Sheley and I have or that we have with our experts, the more I learn, the better I can be for our industry.
But you know what? You were bringing up a great point and talking about the industry right now, and this is your perspective on where we are.
Yes. So wealth generating versus wealth depleting. So a little bit of context, and I'll be quick in this because I want to get to the meaty horse stuff, right? My undergrad degree is in business management and entrepreneurship. And particularly with that degree, we studied business models and how startups take their company from being just an everyday business to actually truly becoming wealth generating, whether that's for the business themselves or for the industry at large. Mm-hmm. While I was going through my business program, it was also a symbiotic point in time My dad was kind of moving his way out of the NRHA. He was past president at the time, was producing some of his own events, got hired at Westworld, which is obviously a large facility here. And so talking about bigger events that do bigger things. And so he started to actually study and look at, when you think about a sport, basketball, football, horses, reining, right, cutting, whatever the sport is, golf, NASCAR, PBR, what takes a sport from being immature to mature, from being wealth depleting to wealth generating, right? When you think about NFL or the NBA and you see these news articles about how the newest, hottest thing out of college gets signed for $43 million, like, how is that possible? Because nobody in Reining is earning $43 million a year, right? I mean, we're talking about a $5 million rider or $6 million rider or breaking the $1 million mark as a lifetime achievement, right?
Yep.
And
many years.
Yeah.
Years.
Whole career.
Yeah.
And so he and I were both at unique spots in our own lives. And as he started to look at that in the horse world, I was looking at that from the business side of things. And so we got to kind of bounce things off of each other. He ended up studying 3 industries, PBR, golf, and NASCAR, because those were all industries that in our lifetime we saw go from being wealth depleting to wealth generating and flip that switch for the industry themselves. The key element in all of those scenarios, which certainly is true in what we all know as mature sports, basketball, football, whatever, is the spectator. When you bring a spectator to the sport, you bring in outside money that is not taking money from it, right? They are putting money in for whatever reason, entertainment, education, youth activity, right? There are many reasons that they put money in.
Yep.
But when you have a spectator at many levels, national events, television spectator, youth competitor, et cetera, you start to take an industry from being wealth depleting to wealth generating. When I think about racing, and racing isn't a perfect model, right?
Yeah.
Because it has
plenty of its own issues.
That's correct.
It does.
But there are
a business model, when we look at it from a business model perspective.
For sure. What I think the Kentucky Derby does in such a cool way is they take 2 minutes, at the Kentucky Derby, and they turn it into wealth generating for the rest of the industry, right? Every winner of the Kentucky Derby, probably every top 5, top 10 in the Kentucky Derby takes home more money than what they'd see in most of the rest of the year, right? Or what they'd see if they weren't competing in racing, right? The advertisers, the sponsors, NBC has exclusive rights. They pay for that, right?
Yeah.
They're doing that because they find value in the amount of attention that the Kentucky Derby gets. I mean, shoot, I do marketing for some cocktail bars, and we had cocktail specials for the Kentucky Derby. We have nothing to do with horses, right? But we literally created food and drink specials around the 2 minutes, the 2 greatest or 2 fastest minutes in sports.
Yep.
So from the nerd business person in me finds that entire event super interesting in the horse world because, I mean, at our reigning majors, right? NRBC, we're headed into the Derby soon.
Yep. The Futurity.
Right? We've got these major events. We get 3,000 to 5,000 ringside and maybe another 3 to 5 or 8 viewing online. 1,000, right?
Yeah.
The Kentucky Derby just had more viewers than the Grammys, 15 million watching it that day. And I also found this fascinating. This was true in 2019, and I believe the statistic was true for this year as well. 2020 was a weird year for everybody. More people watched the 20-minute post-show of the Kentucky Derby than actually streamed the Derby itself.
Interesting.
Right?
So, and in that post-show, they're talking about, the pedigree. They're talking about the breeder. They're talking about the trainer, the rider. They're talking about all these various things and aspects around, what that tells me, and just so you guys know, Chelsea and I talked about this, but we kept our ideas separate because we just wanted to come fresh to this. Is that horses bring out something in people that nothing else does.
For sure.
And so being able to watch that, at the race, I tear up when I watch a race because I don't know firsthand what's going behind, but I know all the work that goes into it. And I know what it means to the owner. I know what it means to the rider or the jockey. I feel that. And I literally, right now, I I feel it.
Yeah.
And I think those that aren't participating in it are even in it. And here's the one thing is, just to be devil's advocate, is I bet you a lot of, maybe some of you guys are right now are saying like, hey, well, yeah, but they bet. It's all about the money. It's not all about the money. These viewers aren't, maybe they placed a local bet, and there is betting going on.
Sure.
But that's not what drove. 15 million people didn't bet on it. I guarantee that.
How many of you guys watched the Kentucky Derby? Seriously. How many of you watched the Kentucky Derby? So question number 1, comment below and let us know if you watched the Kentucky Derby. Also comment below and let us know if you bet. Because did you bet?
No.
I didn't bet.
No.
None of my family bet, and we all watched it.
No. I was sitting by a pool, and I pulled it up on my phone and watched it. Like, I watched, but I wasn't. It was to watch this race, this iconic race.
100%. 100%. And I don't even think the betting thing is bad, but it's just another stimulus, right? It's another element of education or entertainment or whatever. Okay, I want to talk about for a second, because I want to talk about how this applies to reining. And you come from a unique perspective because you're non-pro, so you're entering, right? And you're paying all the entry fees, and you're choosing which shows to go to, and you're making those strategic decisions. You're also a breeder, so I think you've got a unique perspective from, you've got sires and dams to think about, you've got babies to think about, you've got, all those things. Breeding programs, open versus closed events based on a breeder's program.
Yep.
Right? So let me look and see how many people. So we've got some people that watched. Some people did watch it. Some people didn't. For those of you guys just tuning in, let us know. Did you watch the Kentucky Derby? Didn't you watch the Kentucky Derby? The Kentucky Derby is not a breeder's program. It is an open entry. Anybody can ride, right? You got to pay the entry fee.
You got to pay to enter up, but there was no special nomination needed to be able to compete in that race.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things that we were looking at when we're like, okay, let's compare that to our industry, because we do have 3 big shows, which the babies do need to be babies and stallions actually do need to be nominated to be able to compete at these events. And that, that has costs associated with it. It has increased purses associated with it. There's a lot of different things. That being said, it does, if you don't pay to nominate and you miss a deadline, the fee goes up drastically to be able to do it.
Right.
So you have to forward think as a breeder, like, I know, okay, with this many babies, this is how many fees I'm going to have to pay to get them, to make sure, in hopes that we can go compete at these shows, but there's no guarantee.
Right.
And so, I think there's a few things with this, with the breeding thing. I've really been thinking about this one, because I remember when it was just the NRBC that we had to pay to play in. And pay to play is the nomination, not your entry fee is what I'm talking about, is the nomination. It's a really cool concept, and kept the quality high. There was a cost associated with it, but there were larger purses available, both in the open and the non-pro, which, as we are paying these entry fees, although I will say the entry fees for the NRBC are fairly reasonable compared to other horse shows throughout the year. The flip side of it, that I do think that the nominations have helped with the industry, and Steve and Pete talked about this at the NRBC, is the quality of horses that we have. Is that I do believe that it has in turn, because it costs a little bit more to play now, it has made breeders take more time in deciding on how they're going to do it and increasing the quality. The quality of the horses now versus 10 years ago is
drastic.
Huge.
Drastic.
Huge. The natural ability. We are breeding little Michael Jordans, and it's amazing. It's hard now when you're having such great stock. So
for sure,
I think that there is a correlation that the breedings have increased the quality, or the nominations have increased the quality of the horses being bred. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. On one hand, I see it. On the other hand, I wonder if I don't want. Sure. Yes. I think you're right.
I'm not trying to persuade you. I just want to know your thoughts.
Well, so what I read, I watched the Kentucky Derby live, and again, like I gave you guys just a little bit of a snippet of the work that my dad and I have put into researching and understanding industries, right? What makes them work and not work, and blah blah blah. So I'm a student of this stuff, right? And so like for me, the Kentucky Derby, there is absolutely that like competitive, like, oh my gosh, I want to see who wins, and the emotion and the blah blah blah. But the production, I mean, and I'm also an announcer, right? So when I'm watching the Kentucky Derby, I'm listening to what they're talking about, what they're not talking about, when they talk, when they don't, I'm watching all those things. So I was glued, right? For the 40 minutes on, like 20 minutes on either side of the Kentucky Derby, I was glued for all of those reasons. When they started to, now I didn't do any homework going into the Kentucky Derby, so I didn't have any clue who was the favorite.
The horses or anything.
None of it, right? What I was building cocktail menus for my cocktail bars on the Kentucky Derby cocktails that we were going to offer, right?
Yep.
But once they start bringing the horses out on the track and they're announcing this horse, has these odds and this horse is this, and they, in the interim they don't give you the whole story. They highlight 2 or 3, right? And, oh, well, this horse just sold and they've got a new owner and blah, 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 and we'll see how they do today, all these things. Well, as they start to do that, I go to Google, right, while I'm watching the Kentucky Derby live, and I start to look at the top 2 or 3 favorites, right? Who's going to win, and then I'll Google them, who they think is going to win, right? Who's the favorite? I'll Google them. I'll Google the second horse. I'll Google the third horse. Medina Spirit, the horse that won, was probably, I didn't look, but 4th, 5th, 6th in the lineup in terms of a favorite. He was not a favorite.
Oh, no, he was not a favorite.
Not at all, right? He wasn't even really mentioned in the lineup. I mean, he
was 15-1, but then when it came out that Bob Baffert was the trainer, it all of a sudden dropped to 12-1.
Right.
So, like, that was the change on that
day. Yeah. So that horse was not in my Google search, headed up to the break of the race. That being said, as soon as it was probably before the end of the race, I think it was in that last stretch, and the commentators doing what the commentators do, and Medina Spirit's making the last corner, right? Making the round of the last corner. That's when I'm like, the horses aren't catching up to this front runner, and it's a 15-1, and so like all the things, right, are starting to come up for me, and I go to Google. So by the time I get to one of the first articles that came up on Google, it was something that was written 5 or 6 days prior, and it was listed on the Kentucky Derby website as it was a background bio and it was obviously one of those bios that they wrote about every single contender, right? Whoever was going to be the horse running in the Kentucky Derby, they had one of those on it. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. This is where it was bred. This is, how much it's sold for this. And talk about a everyday story, right? Everyday story.
Cinderella story, yeah.
Well, only a Cinderella story because he wins.
Because he won.
Right? Yeah.
At the end. But, yeah, it's just a horse.
Yes.
Here he is.
Sold for $1,000 as a yearling. Sold because the woman that owned him was in the middle of a divorce, needed to, literally, she said it in the interview, needed to shrink up her herd a little bit, couldn't take care of as many as she wanted to take care of. This one was cute, but not really that special.
Yeah.
Let it go for $1,000 at auction. No reserve. Just get in the auction, get it gone, right? And somebody buys it for $1,000, keeps it for a year, sells it for $35,000 to the guy who owns it at the Kentucky Derby, and now it wins, right? In that article, which I am reading about the time that, Medina Spirit wins the race, right? And then they show Bob Baffert, like, losing his shit and whatever. I'm reading this article, and the very last quote of the article, the very last sentence of the article says something to the effect of, and this is what I love about the Kentucky Derby, a little horse from a no-name breeders program can show up and win it all. And like, whether that's an emotional trigger that it hit for me, the combat, the Cinderella story, or whether that's a young horse at a young stage in life, anything can happen. Whether it's that emotion, whatever it is, maybe it's the industry element of it, right? That business nerd in me. But when I read that, it immediately took me to questioning, are breeders programs, big picture, good for our industry? So, to your question, do I think that they're increasing quality? 1,000%.
Yep.
Absolutely, right? Do I think that the quality they are increasing is the best is the macro level, the best thing for the industry? Could we be increasing quality without? So here's what I think is interesting, or here's the question that I want to kind of rebuttal your question with.
Yeah.
Right now, when we think about maybe the 5 or 6 most major events, and you can even boil that down to the top 3, NRBC, Derby, Futurity. Right now, all 3 of those are closed. Mm-hmm. The breeders program, right? Yep. When I say closed, I mean breeders program. Does that help us, right? Because this horse, when I think about the Kentucky Derby and the comparable at the Kentucky Derby, the last 2 races that and Bob Baffert said this live to the camera, looked straight in the lens, did not perform well at its last 2 races.
No, I looked up his stats. Like I think he won a couple, was second a couple, like just kind of like a horse in his training barn.
Yes.
Like there was one, I think the favorite got hurt and all this other stuff. But I think it's a really interesting question that you posed back to me. Because I do feel strongly that it's increased the quality. That being said, closing things off is never good.
Or not always good. I mean,
it's not always good,
mm-hmm.
I should say.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always good. And I believe that, it's interesting. Because, I mean, as a breeder, right, like I have fees. Breeding fees, embryo fees, vet fees, this, that, like it adds up. And I am boutique small compared to these large breeders that have lots and lots of horses. And paying all those fees, I mean, that adds to the bottom line. And
which increases cost to the customer, increases cost to an incoming person that's never heard of reining before, right? Those fees trickle down.
Well, and does it hurt horses that maybe were bred and are great little horses that kind of flew under the radar and didn't get nominated, but could be something great? But they won't get the chance unless someone wants to pony up whatever the fee is if they didn't get nominated as a weanling. So that's where I think that we could be missing the boat, is that some of these horses that maybe slip through the cracks, or some people that are like, you know what, I bred this great horse, I have a good mare, I bred this great horse, but you know what, I'm not going to go compete at that level. I'm not going to pay the nomination fees, and whatever happens, happens. Well, then something changes in their life, and then for them to try and sell that horse, now it's really hard for them to sell that horse because most people want to play in that game. So it can make it closed off, and it could hurt values. It could hurt, people's willingness to want to continue in the sport if there's so many barriers to entry.
I'm getting a few comments in that I want to circle back to. So we're talking about the Kentucky Derby, and for those of you guys that might just be joining us, let us know in the comments if you watched it, because that certainly is helpful to us as we continue this conversation. So we got a comment from Allison Essler. She said, I always has said that the Derby should run like a futurity or maturity. Allison, I want to know what you mean with that. So if you could give us a little bit more context, do you mean by it being only one age, right? The futurity is for 3-year-olds, the Derby should only be for 4-year-olds. Are you referencing some other aspect to the program? So I'd love to know, Allison, from what perspective you mean, because I want to circle back to that. Boo Ross just commented in, and we had Steve on 2 weeks ago. We were talking about a lot of judging topics, but Boo and Steve do a lot here locally and nationally on the buying and selling side of things and are quite familiar with all of these programs. So Boo said, closed breeders programs are narrowing the bloodlines. There is no outcrossing anymore, and every horse in the industry now has almost the same breeding. When we look downstream 20 years, what does that mean?
What a great perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, 20 years from now. And, it's hard because I think that our junior stallions out there have so much potential, but then we have so much pressure to go with the proven line that we know. And actually...
that's a very good...
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and the other thing I read about the winner was that it was the dam's first foal. Okay?
Yes.
It was the dam's first foal, and the stallion has had like 2 small crops. Like, it is no name by no name. And here we go.
Yep.
So I do feel that to your point, Boo, that it makes it more challenging for junior stallions to come up. And we are I think there is an argument that we could be narrowing the bloodlines. You know, because we're sticking with the ones that are the stallions that pay in that nomination fee.
Right. Right.
And could we then get down line breeding and like it could lead to things in the future for sure.
For sure. Another comment came in from Jessica Howe. The nomination programs are great for raising purse money, but as far as for building our sport, it could be limiting us. This, I think, is a really good point because I remember growing up, my dad used to say, for no reason, we'd be sitting at the dinner table eating mashed potatoes. Reining's built on 3 core things: great judges, great ground, and great purses. I'm like, we're eating mashed potatoes. What are you talking about? But that stuff was just always in his head, right? And as a kid, I didn't get it. Now I get it, right? And I also get it because he's started to tell me, and I've heard from so many other industry greats, stories of where Reining came from in terms of stepping out of the breed world, right? And being in a world where it's points and egos and who you are and how many ribbons and, you know, yada, yada. And that turns into a political game, who you know and who you're related to and, you know, all of those things. Reining was able to step out of that, and here's the money on the table, and if you can show up and you can mark.
Here's our judging system. That's
correct.
a point system. It's not based upon total subjectivity. So, yeah.
And good grounds, good judges, good purses. So I do think that this is also a valid, like, counter-argument to, but breeders' programs are helping build these purses.
But is there a different way to have better purses? That's the thing, is if we had more spectators, like the Kentucky Derby, could we have better purses without a nomination, like a nominating closed program? Or is it necessary? That's the thing, is like, this is the way that we're doing it right now, but is this the best way for us to continue doing it in the future?
Ooh.
What do you guys think? I mean, honestly, you know, I think that definitely having the purses, it is a lot. I mean, you know, as a non-pro, and I have, you know, horses that I want my trainers to show, horses that I show, that we both show. And it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of all the fees. And I'm not, I mean, sure, I'd love to make a lot of money doing this, but we all know that. But if it can pay for itself, it's a big deal.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
And, you know, I've been very fortunate over the last several years, but I've been doing this for, I mean, there's people that have been doing this way longer than me. I've been doing this since 98 and really breeding, I would say, smart, different way. I tried it about 10 years ago, didn't work out so well. This time, very, very well. You know, I had my first one out last year, and we had some success. But
success? Okay.
We'll
come to
talk
that.
about
Yeah, yeah.
But, yeah, I just don't. I'd pose that question to you guys. You know, let us know in your thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is a really good question. And I also, I mean, I think about where that, where a closed breeder system lives in the industry too, because, I mean, shoot, I was at the NRBC just a few weeks ago. I was announcing in one of the arenas at the NRBC, and it's such a cool event to be at because of the purses, because it attracts some of the best.
Event.
Correct.
Yeah. High quality horses, trainers, clients, non-pro. I mean, it's a
very
high
cool
class
event. Yes. Yeah. And I'm confident that the reason it's been able to do that is because of the fact that it is a closed breeders program. It's been able to build those purses, right? That's why people are showing up. That being said, you've got the Derby and Futurity, right? Those produced by our national organizations, now also closed. But then I also think about, and I'll use a specific example. So I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. There's a great club up in Western New York called the Yankee Reining Horse Association, YRHA. Shout out to YRHA. And it's been cool because I've been announcing their shows for years. I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years. They were one of the first clubs to get behind and hire me for all of their shows when I was very young and gave me a shot, right? The little guy, little girl. And so it's been cool for me to watch this club. I mean, that club's been around years before I was, but to watch them go from being a truly local, regional, good weekend horse show to developing some aged events within their horse show. They developed a Derby, they developed a Futurity, produced them inside their weekend shows, and then Travis Puffpath, one of the guys that was quite active, still is quite active in that club, started to look and see some of the other models like the NRBC, like the Derby and Futurity programs, nominations, etc., and took a model similar to that and created a closed breeders program within that event, right? So you could go, you could show. It wasn't completely closed in the sense that you had to be nominated or paid up to enter at all, but the majority of the purse money came from those nominations. And so if you were entered into that breeders program, you were getting the real checks, right? Now, what I found fascinating as I watched this program develop, it's still around. It actually this year is moving outside of the Yankee Reining Horse Association to, it's now called the North American Stakes, and it's going to be produced in Virginia. I'll be there. You guys come say hi to me in July. But this is a cool transition, right, or an interesting transition, because the club was good, strong, healthy, had 3 strong shows. But when Travis developed that program, they saw entries go up. They saw stalls go up, right? Stalls are going up because entries are going up. And for anybody that's been on the horse show side of things, production side of things, stalls are where most shows make their money.
Yep.
And so when you talk about taking a local club that's just trying to do good things for their local members, and you start to increase stalls, you can do some things, right? Bigger purses, you can have some better weekend events, you can, yada, yada.
And so it's open.
And it's open.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it started to do that. Now, they reached an interesting spot, and this is where I'm thinking about, like, the role of breeders programs for the sake of developing purses, breeders programs not only for those kind of things, but also their role in the industry, right? Because where they might not be the best tool for us at the national level, Derby, Futurity, NRBC, I think, is a really cool anomaly that's found some success.
They were the first ones. They were the pioneers with it. Yep.
But when I look at this club, that program, I'm using my own terms here, but sort of outgrew Yankee, right? It outgrew that local association. It wanted to have access to more stalls, right? They filled up the facility, right? They wanted to run different patterns than what that facility could handle. They wanted to run their events differently than what that local association was doing in terms of that local association's goals to serve its members.
Yeah.
All members, right? And that's different than what a breeders group is trying to do in serving the breeders and the exhibitors to that breeders program. So I think they're testing a very cool model in the sense that they're now going to go produce kind of their own event or be a part of their own event with another organization. They're in Virginia, so they're still sticking to that East Coast region, but that's a very different state, right? From New York to Virginia.
For sure.
Big move. And so we'll see what that looks like, but I also think that's an interesting question. Is there a role for breeders programs at the local or at the regional level as a way to build purses, create incentive for local breeders, right, and for small boutique breeders, and maybe not try and use them at Derby and Futurity as the thing? I mean, if I compare that to the NFL, right, and what if we said that you couldn't go to the Super Bowl unless your parents had joined the blah, blah, blah club for $1 million?
We wouldn't have many people going.
Doing what, right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like
how would that change the spectator's perspective? That's the thing that we have to think about.
For sure.
Because if we're talking about, driving more spectators, driving more people into the industry, and how would that change the NFL viewership? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Would that make it go down? Would people care that mom and dad had to pay this fee to get them in? So did they really earn it? I don't know if that would have helped increase spectators, right?
For sure.
Which ultimately is what we want. And that's where I think, I'm thinking for the sake of time, but you brought this up too, is kind of our second thing. Is because you brought up the Yankee Reining Horse Association and kind of what they did. And I think it brings up the question that we have to ask ourselves is, which shows do we go to?
For sure. As exhibitors, as breeders.
As owners, as trainers, which shows do you go to with which horses? I mean, I know that this is already, a discussion point. I mean, I know I have it with my trainers, discussion point on kind of planning out which horse shows we go to, but money does drive decisions. It does.
For sure.
You know,
for non-pros and pros, and open riders.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, so can we use, you and Guy Diamond as an example? When you looked last year, beginning of the year, and you think, okay, I've got a 3-year-old this year, where do I go? Talk me through how you, as a non-pro and as a breeder, thought through those decisions in terms of local versus national. Where's the money? Where's the risk? Little fish, big fish in a little pond, little fish in a big pond.
Little fish in a big pond, for sure, and with me, it was really interesting because we sat down, we talked about it, and a lot of this has to do with the horse, right? Like where the horse is, and can they make kind of some of the summer futurities, or do they need a little bit more time, and we'll do some of the fall, and do we want to go to the big futurity? I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson the expensive way in entering into the futurity, right?
But what do you mean learned your lesson?
So I had, I believe it was 4 or 5 horses I paid in that didn't go. Ooh. So I made a nice donation to NRHA. So I don't pay them. I pay the late fee. That's my choice, right? Because I would rather take the risk and pay the late fee and know that we're going than to pay along the way, and then you sell them, something happens, they're not ready, what have you. And you're welcome, NRHA. Here's my donation. Back in the day when we could sell the entries, that was phenomenal. I wish that would come back, and they would probably get more entries up front. But they could be making a lot more money on the back end with late fees at this point. So with us, I mean, it was always my dream. I mean, I shared this on the NRHA podcast. I've shared this that, like, I've been trying to get back to the futurity for 20 years. I hadn't shown at the futurity for 20 years, and for one reason or another, I just never made it. And so it was our goal to get there. But when I sat down with Daniel and we were going over, okay, what shows, and the horse was really progressing, and we're like, okay, let's go to Denver. So we actually went to three shows, if I'm correct, before the futurity. And none of the 3 shows were Denver, Tulsa, and Best of the West here locally.
Okay.
Denver is interesting because they do have a breeder incentive program, the Stallion Stakes. But me as the owner doesn't pay into it, my entry fee.
Sure. It's
the stallion owner. So the stallion owner donates a breeding, and then all of their prodigy can go and enter in that year. So I was fortunate. Stallion was entered so that we could go. Worked out very well. And we made, a good paycheck. Go to the next show. Daniel shows them. I show them. Open show. Again, it was Tulsa. Got a good paycheck. Then we go to the Best of the West. We get a good paycheck. So Guy Diamond actually made, and his name is Dirty Diamonds. We call him Guy Diamond. My kids name him after.
Can you tell me why? Can we talk about that for a second?
Just real quick. So the kids named the babies. We have Hans and Chewie this year. No, Solo and Chewie this year. Star Wars theme. But Guy Diamond and Poppy from the Trolls movie. So they're trolls. Okay. Guy Diamond is a Perlino. Guy Diamond, the troll, is like the glitter troll. So when Guy Diamond
kind of troll, you're asking me.
That is your troll. So that's where he got his name.
Okay.
But his name is Dirty Diamond. So he actually won more money in the pre-fraternities than he did in the breeders' fraternity, which I would have to look back and add up and compare the entry fees and what have you. It was also a unique situation. I will say this year I was all 4 levels. I hadn't shown for 2 years, so I had dropped down into all 4 levels.
Take it while you got it.
It was a great opportunity. I was glad I was able to do that. And so it is a process, but I do think it's dependent upon the horse. I also make a spreadsheet. So you're the marketing geek. I'm
a spreadsheet of what?
So I look at all the horse shows. I look at all the horse shows and the costs that are associated with it, the purses that are going to be there, and my potential to bring home a paycheck. And then I look at it and I look at percentages based upon what's there, and then I make some financial decisions. So while it is a decision based upon the horse, I also look at financially, because I don't have a unlimited checkbook, right? I'm working my tail off to be able to do this. I need to know that it makes sense to do it for the horse, for me, for the business, and,
Sure.
and everything. So there's a lot of different factors. But ultimately,
Do you know how many people in the industry do that?
What?
Do you guys do that? Do you like spreadsheet it out? Like, I would be really curious to know how many people. No judgment. I think it's awesome.
I mean,
it makes me really glad that we're partnering in this venture together. Like, clearly, you think logically.
I think things through maybe a little bit too much. Ask Carrie and Daniel and my husband. They will be like, "What is she doing?" Yeah, I just like to look at it from various perspectives. I mean, I've been bit a couple times,
Sure.
you know, and
Sure.
it takes those couple times of biting your checkbook that you're like, all right, I need to be a little bit smarter about this and doing it. So if anyone out there crunches numbers like me, please make me not feel like such a nerd and tell me that you do in the comments.
Yep.
I would appreciate it.
Jessica agrees with you on paying the late fees. She's like, pay the late fees. It'll save you thousands.
But it is ultimately driven by the horse. You know,
Sure.
a lot of the horse. And my theory, along with my trainer, is that we think about longevity. And so there was a lot of different things that we think about. That being said, the reason why I kind of pose this question is from a owner standpoint, can you accomplish the same thing staying out of the breeder driven shows, the nominating shows, and going to some of the other shows?
Right.
You know, is there purse money there? Does that drive membership? Does that drive more stalls and money for the local associations?
Right.
Is there a better way of doing it?
For sure.
I do like the Denver Summer Slide, the Rocky Mountain Reining Horse Association. That Denver Summer Slide, I had a horse back in 2000 that Randy Paul showed, and he won the fraternity there. I mean, it paid really well back then. Is there a better way of doing it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wonder. And I wonder if we took a little bit more time and looked at the horse and the longevity and entry fees, maybe got a little bit more analytical, would we make different choices and not always look at that one big prize?
Mm-hmm.
And what if that prize money got spread among more horse shows rather than one Super Bowl horse show? Mm-hmm. On the flip side, though, the spectator and the viewership of the fraternity, our Super Bowl, is huge. It's huge for our industry. It's huge internationally for our industry.
Mm-hmm. But internationally, does the spectator, even if they're Rainer savvy, care if it's a closed breeders program?
I don't think they know.
No,
they
don't.
don't care.
I mean, the Run for a Million is proof of that, right? Like, everybody, the fact that there's a big purse creates spectator appeal, because I truly believe this. Not because of the dollar figure, but because it promotes sport. It promotes competition. It promotes best of the best. Show up with what you got. Leave it all in the arena, right? And of course, when you're doing that for big money, it's a big deal, right? But does the spectator, does the person watching that actual sport care?
No. And you know what else the spectator cared about? I mean, I wasn't at the event. I wish I was, the Run for the Million, but I saw the video and saw the stands and everything.
My family was there.
What I saw was a well-produced event. What I saw was events and things geared towards the spectator, right? The autographs from the riders, right? Like, I know some of the riders. I'm like, I don't know the signature, right? But the spectators, you're their hero.
For sure.
Like, I mean, that's what happens at PBR, right? Like, I mean, the biggest bull riders, I mean, kids are in awe,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
of them. Creating that environment, right, that means that we have to change what we are currently doing.
100%.
We have to be more open. We have to invite and be willing to talk to them.
Oh my God, produce an event for the spectator? What?
I mean, my daughter would be, like, my daughter, when she takes a lesson from Carrie, she's like, do I get a lesson from Carrie today? And I'm like, yeah, it's not me. today. It's Carrie.
Right.
It's a Carrie.
The famous one.
You
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what I mean? And it's such a cool event. I mean, and that's my daughter. But there are so many people in this industry that you see these people do, these trainers and these non-pros do these amazing rides, and it's in awe. I'm in awe, right?
Ditto.
And it's like, I would love
It's hard to be in awe when you're announcing, right? I'm like, and you're next to work.
You're like,
Get it together, Chelsea.
yeah, right. So I just, you know, we kind of went off topic on a few different things, but we were talking about taking our horses to different shows that maybe aren't closed. What if we supported more open shows? How would that change our spectators? Could we grow?
For sure.
You know, I know at the local level that we talked about this, I forget with who, but we talked about this. The prime time and the youth classes are at the highest they've ever been.
I think Pam Carey, we were talking about that. Yeah.
How cool was that? How cool is that? You know, I mean, we're having more kids that are going to stay with it. And parents, keep your kids and horses. I'm living proof that it will keep them out of trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we need to do. Mm-hmm. We need to keep the kids in, but you know what? We need to keep the parents happy. So is there something that we could do at the horse shows to make it more spectator friendly?
Totally.
To keep them involved?
Totally.
Would they want to get involved? How could we make it different?
I think that's the crux of the question, right? What can we be doing at the horse show to make it different in such a way that it attracts in youth and of course the parents on the other side of that, those that are, whether that's at the spectator level or the contribution level, we've got to start thinking about how to do things differently.
You know, I just thought about something that's really interesting, and it crossed my mind with the Run for a Million. And let me know if we have some comments.
We do. We'll get to them in a second.
Is the Run for a Million. I mean, it was at Vegas. I mean, that's a draw. Like,
right.
What a great draw. I mean, well-produced event. So many pre-events that were going on. The red carpet, all of that. You know, we go to a horse show in Burbank, California. So in LA. It's in downtown LA. We didn't get to go last year, but it's a great show, great facility. It's right there. You can go down to the studios. I mean, it's such a great time. Most horse shows I go by myself. Kids are in school. We've got horses, dogs at home. Like, it's just a lot. Burbank, Chris and the kids come. Do you know why? Because there is an awesome children's museum. We can go down and see the studios. We could go to Universal Studios. We make a vacation out of Burbank. Mm-hmm. You know, I know that like the Cactus Classic here, you know, I mean, Arizona in March is amazing. But it's in such a great location, the Burbank show, that we make a vacation of it. Yeah. I'm actually at the horse show. I'm at the horse show, obviously, to practice and to show. But it's okay. I don't feel like I have to like stay there all day.
Sure.
We go and enjoy and eat great food and have fun. Like, so I think that there's something there too that we could do better at the different shows. I mean, it's hard. No offense, Oklahoma City, but it's a little bit hard in June and November to go have fun. Great restaurants now, but it's a little bit hard, you know. Maybe that means a new location. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just throwing some things out there. For sure.
Well, and even, I mean, I'm thinking about this. I know I've shared this with you. I just got great news from the NRHA yesterday. So I'm starting to think about what the Derby is going to look like from all of these standpoints, right? So
wait, before you go on, can we please share our excellent news?
Yes. So
this is official.
It is official. I will be the Coliseum announcer at the NRHA Derby this year. Super and obviously the show is going to happen the way the show happens, right? I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm going to show up and do what I do, right? Music, announcing, and it's really about me being able to do that in the way that they see fit. But because of my nature and probably genetics, I am always thinking about, and this is why I got into announcing, I'm thinking about what my role is, not what my job is, right? Like, I know what my contract says, right? It says Coliseum announcer. But what my role is in this industry, and a big part of what I think about all the time, is how do I create an environment in the little way that I have control over? How do I create an environment that makes every moment that exhibitor is with me the best that it can be, and every moment that a spectator might be with me, the best that it can be. And to this conversation, I mean, I know that I don't have, control over the entire Derby at large, right? Like, again, I'm going to be there in 6 weeks doing what I do in the way that they want me to do it. But it does make me start to think about, now that I have the opportunity to be in the Coliseum, what if the Derby were just focused on being the Derby, right? Or the futurity, we're just focused on being the futurity. And to your point, even though Oklahoma City doesn't have all the things that downtown LA does, or that Scottsdale does, or whatever, if people went to just watch the big stuff, you would be going to dinners, and you would be visiting other farms, and you would be spending some time back at the barns shopping a little bit at the, with the other horses, or with the vendor. Like, I do think that event could become, not only for our own industry, but for outside of our industry, more of a spectator-driven event. And yeah, it might take a few years, but if you do that for a few years, how does that change the industry? Like, how does that affect what we're all doing?
I think that's the question. And actually, it's the questions that you ask yourself. How can I make this, repeat those questions again? Like, how can I make you looked at your role. It's not a job, it's your role.
Yeah.
You are creating an experience for people, right? There are certain songs that come to, when they play on the radio, they bring back a memory of me showing Dirty Diamonds last year.
For sure.
Like, I mean, immediately, and I've never had that. So, like, it creates an
I remember the song that I played for you when you rode in my arena at the futurity. Like, it does. It creates an experience.
It creates an experience. And I'm like, it's a memory now for me. And it's not like I just went to go show. Like, now that carries on, right? Like, I can watch my videos, but, like, I'm just driving around, the song plays, and I'm like, yeah, I remember.
Totally.
Like, that's a big deal.
Totally.
That's part of the experience.
Huge part of the experience.
And, I mean, as a spectator listening, and it's more entertaining than elevator smooth jazz. Like, I love it.
Well, when I often think about the comparable to rodeo. I do not think a reining show should be like a rodeo. They're different. We're doing different things. We are exhibiting different stuff, right? And you can compare it to even other events, right? Like, I went to a really big football college, so compared to a college football game, right? Or compared to, there's a few other comparables. As the spectator, this is what I remind myself all the time. The exhibitor is thinking about the correlation of song to ride, right? Or songs around that time in terms of enhancing experience. The spectator is the music creates an environment for them. And whatever that, it's like that quote, who says it, Mother Teresa or somebody phenomenal like that, right? People don't remember what you say, people remember how you made them feel. The environment that you create, you announcer, you show producer, you facility, right, all of those things, whether that's from the music, from the cheering that goes on. I've been fascinated the last few years at how we're not cheering for each other anymore. When the big guys come in that have the big fancy horses, everybody's just holding their breath. And it's like, no, we need to be hooting and hollering, right? Because it's good. Like, it is good.
It's so, yeah.
And that feeling as a spectator, they're not going to remember the song that I played when you rode, or the song that I played when, Fapani rode, or the song that I played when Danny Tremblay. They're going to remember, oh my gosh, I couldn't feel my chest because the stands were thundering, right? That horse was stopping so big and I felt it. Well, they're not going to think about I felt it because of the crowd and because of the music. I felt it, right? And it gives me chill bumps thinking about it right now. But I think the ultimate question, and what the Kentucky Derby can make us ask ourselves about reining, is what can and should we be doing inside our industry and at our events that can create events that create a draw, right? And that expand our industry, invite more people in.
And invite more people in from a spectator perspective and from an exhibitor.
For sure.
Exhibitor owner perspective.
For sure.
I think that there's both, and that's why, open or closed breeding program shows and all of that. I mean, it's questioning it. I think we can argue both sides.
Yeah.
The real question is it getting us to where we want to be down the road?
And or where does it fit? Right? Maybe there's some roles for some of those across the country, whether regionally, otherwise. Is it the best at the national level? I don't know. So, yeah, should they be there, or where do they fit, I think is the big questions.
Do we have any comments?
We do have a few, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Thank you, Jessica, and the congratulations. big upper level shows do need to think about fan experience. Could not agree more. Mary Ann made a few interesting comments when we were talking about the Kentucky Derby. When you see the Derby on TV and see the production, the track is a different experience. Tons of fan engagement, tons of fan.
The hats. I mean, think about like all of it. Yeah.
All of it. And I've even had those conversations too with people. Sometimes they're a little bit old timers, right? And they're like, Chelsea, you're playing this. Everything that's not country to them is rap, right? Like, you're playing this bad rap music, and that's not what our industry does. And I have to ask myself things like that. I mean, I look at Barrett Jackson. I look at other events outside of our industry. Do you know how much Barrett Jackson does that is not auction related? A pile, right? They have hundreds of activations. Does the hat have anything to do with the race? No, but it has everything to do with the experience and the feeling and to attract people in, and then maybe they'll fall in love with the horse, right?
And I mean, it's even just the entry into the Barrett Jackson and how they enter you into the experience.
Totally.
Those smallest things.
Totally. So yeah, Marianne makes some great points there. She also talked about the large corporate sponsors help make those purses so big. And part of the reason those corporate sponsors, I think, they can demand what they do from those corporate sponsors and the streaming revenue that they get is because they have so many viewers. When you're talking about streaming to 15 million plus who's ever streaming online, right? That's another handful of million. You can talk about Ford or, Longines or whomever at the millions of dollars in corporate sponsorship, right? You can't expect, and that again
which then allows the event to do that much more of an experience.
100%.
But it's definitely a back and forth.
Absolutely. Jessica with us again, talking about, lower level shows, starter classes need to focus more on the exhibitor and giving them a great experience, meeting them where they are. Upper level feel like should be more focused on spectate. That's a great point. That is a great point.
Brought up, yeah.
Lower level shows and classes focusing on the exhibitor and getting those exhibitors in. Upper level or more professional or open classes.
Who said that, Jessica?
Jessica Howe.
So,
do you know Jessica?
No, I don't.
Do I know you, Jessica? Hi.
Jessica,
thank you so much.
Really, really good. What I'd love to hear from you is like how can we make that experience better for the lower level?
Not a pun on the fact that her last name is Howe, but actually,
How
do we do it?
I didn't even, that went right over my head. No, I'm literally asking like how, and it's maybe not to Jessica, to everyone watching, how can we make it a better experience? Like, yeah, we say it all the time. We need to make it a better experience for the grassroots level, blah, blah, blah. How?
That's a great
What
question.
do they want? How can we make it better? That's what we need to answer. And then we need to test. Is this what you want? Nope, that didn't work. Is this it? Oh, we got a winner. That's what we need to do. We all say it. It's the action behind it.
100%. And I think there's two questions there and maybe this is another talk here in the coming weeks. How do you make that more attractive for the lower level spectator, right? For the entry level, let's call them entry level. For the entry level spectator, the youth, the non-pro, the green as grass, the rookie. So what do you guys want out of your horse show? And then second question, separate question, right? Period, end of sentence there. How do we make our open level classes, our open level productions, right? Our level 4 classes more fun to spectate, right? Like I know what I'm thinking about in my head in the current structure and what I can start to have a role in, but I would love to start thinking about what can we do with that level. I mean, the finals, right? When you take the finals, what can we do to make that more fun for reiners to come and sit ringside and watch, to invite their friends that have never seen that stuff, right? I mean, like, I talk about reining to people that I know, colleagues and friends that I have and whatever, and they see me light up. They'll say it all the time, like, you glow when you talk about reining. But I'm so nervous to invite them to a horse show, and I have before, and this is why I'm nervous, because, like, they watch 20 minutes of it, and they're, like, intrigued as long as I'm explaining it, but, like, it doesn't light them on fire like it does me, because it takes sophistication, right?
It does.
Without that engagement, they can't immediately get to it.
The pre-races at the Kentucky Derby, there's all those, I don't know what they're called, I don't know what the terminology is, but all the races they have kind of up to the big race. You're watching, you're playing, you're hanging out.
You're having a bite.
You're what, mint julep?
Yeah.
You're doing your thing, on those races. But
mint julep would be great right now.
Yeah. You're getting blazed. I got the good seat. It's cooling off, though. But once it gets to Kentucky Derby, that's when you pay attention.
Yep.
Right? So it's not that we have to keep it 100% engaged the whole time. but it does need to be an event to when the big event comes on. Let's pay attention. And how can we do that?
That's so
let's
good.
move on. So we did have 3 things. We've talked about 2. We're going to close with this last one because I think it's great. And the last...
Okay, I'm sorry. I got to
What?
stop you because Jessica just said, she said, I have so many ideas about how we can make it better for them. And she says, from how we interact with them to in the office to what I know.
You guys got to pay attention. Pay attention to the experts that we have coming on, you guys. Insane.
We just got so giddy.
Insane. You guys, the experts that we're bringing to you, this is no joke, okay? And this is like real world stuff.
We didn't even stage this. I'm so excited about this.
No, we didn't stage this. But on the 19th, pay attention on May 19th.
19th.
We will answer you with your comments there.
I think could we tell him who's coming on? I think we should.
Yeah. Okay.
So Sean Martin will be joining us, who is probably one of the best secretaries in our industry. Love Sean to death.
There's a lot that are fantastic.
Yes.
Sean is here local. We love her.
Great asset to the industry.
And we're gonna talk about how to make a great experience
In the office.
in the show office. How to have for you and your show office personnel to have a great experience to start off your show. It's gonna be awesome.
Yes.
So I love that you did that. It's coming. So these topics, like that topic, you guys commenting right now is helping us. So and actually we should probably talk about what we're doing before we close up with our last point.
Sure.
Is just with the Rainer Stop Nation, with what we are creating with our experts and what we're bringing on. Right now, guys, we are streaming these public, okay? We are going to create a community. It's going to be an exclusive Facebook group with Rainer Stop that we will bring experts to you. And these are experts from all kinds of different levels, areas of horse business in general, right? So it's not just training tips. It's not, just Chelsea and I. It's going to be lots of different experts. We've already had 3 experts on. I'm waiting on confirmation for next week. If you're watching, you better confirm with me.
No pressure.
No pressure. And then we already have Sean. You guys, things that are so important. Health for the horse, health for the rider. Things that we need to talk about.
Judging topics, event topics.
Breeding, nutrition.
Coaching or showing psychology.
Yes, sports psychology. All of these things, and we are tipping the iceberg right. We are touching the tip of the iceberg right now with what we're doing. So just please, right now, if you love the topics that we've discussed thus far, and if you want to know more, and you want to be on that list for when we launch our community, I would highly recommend jumping over to Rainer Stop right now. Right on the front page, underneath the first photograph, there's a 1-button click. You can enter in your email. There's no commitment there, but that will let you jump into our list, and you'll be first to know when we do launch it.
The idea here, I spend $350 an hour every time I go talk to my attorney, right? An expert for an hour
When you go to your
time.
doctor, when you go to your nutritionist, your fitness trainer.
When somebody hires me for marketing consultant, $125 an hour, right? Like, to get experts, it costs money. And ultimately, I truly believe that having conversations about, we don't know what we don't know, right? And that's why I pay my experts, right? Mm-hmm. And so with this private group that we're going to be launching for you guys, we're utilizing these public lives just to start to find out what interest you have and what topics resonate with you. But ultimately, the idea is the same thing that you would usually pay $350 an hour for, you're going to get from not only one expert, but multiple experts. We're going to be doing this every week. There are many times we'll have panels, and we want to make sure that we are bringing experts to the table that can help you know what you don't know.
And the end of the day, make the industry better.
Absolutely.
That's the end of the day. And it's going to be for everybody. It's not like a prerequisite to get in. Breeder, owner, trainer, enthusiast, whatever.
Yep.
It's going to be for everybody. Okay. So sorry, we just got a little bit excited with Jessica because it's so
Thank you,
cool
Jessica.
because we're foreshadowing things and we want to bring relevant topics. I mean, we talked about spreads because of what we saw at the NRBC. We're talking about the Kentucky Derby and what we can learn from it. I mean, this is how quick we're going to turn this around, and it is live because we want your interaction. So thank you for that. So the last one and I think this is really important with this Medina Spirit, right?
Yep.
Is, he won a couple, didn't win some, kind of was like a horse in the barn, got him with a good trainer, Bob Baffert, 7th Kentucky Derby, but he was kind of the little guy, right? And so I posed the question, when do you not give up?
Ooh.
When do you not give up on your horse, and or you? It took me 20 years to get back to the futurity, guys. 20 years. I didn't give up. Thought about it, but I didn't.
Did you really think about it?
About showing at that level, yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the right guidance. And where I am right now, it's changed my game like nobody's business.
I'm glad. Well, obviously. Hello.
But I have a story to share, and just to kind of paint this picture, because I think that, and the reason I want to bring this up is because there are a lot of great horses being bred right now, and a lot of them get into training programs, and whether they're futurity horses or what have you, what's really cool is we have different options now, right? These horses, ropers are buying reining horses, ranch riders, like our horses are so useful,
Absolutely,
and so well trained that they can go do various things. But there are those horses, right, that you go show and it doesn't work out. You go show again, it doesn't work out. Okay, I'm ready to. Do we give up? Do we go let him have a new job? Do we keep going? Or we see this one, and talking about the little guy, and I was guilty of this. This horse and this experience has taught me a lot. And that's with Dirty Diamonds. Initially, when he was born, right, there was a 4% chance for a Perlino. He popped out. And
4%?
4% chance for a Perlino. And I'm like, seriously? I don't...
Because he was homebred. You had the mama.
Yes, this was a recip, but yes, it's my mare. It was a 4% chance. First one she had, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I was mad. I wasn't mad because I hated the color. I was mad because of the resale potential.
Sure.
I'm a breeder.
Sure.
Right? So I was
Marketing.
mad about that, and I was like, God dang, how am I going to do this? And I was so upset. Well, when he was born, I had a 2-year-old that, she was she was a yearling when I bought her, and then a 2-year-old, and then we go to show her as a 3-year-old. We have great success with her. This was in 2018. And Guy Diamond at that point is a 2-year-old. And this mare, I loved her. And I was like, I want to keep her. We're going to sell Guy Diamond, right? He's a Perlino, super talented, crazy cute, but he's Perlino. No one would look at him. Are we still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. No one would look at him. And those that did look at him were like, yeah, nice, but I can't get past the color, can't get past the color. I didn't have enough money to keep 2 horses in training. So I had to make a choice, right? I couldn't sell Guy Diamond. No one would buy him, even for a very low price. No one would buy him. So I'm like, all right, well, the one that's going to sell is my great mare. So I sell this Derby mare. And I had some great insight from my trainer, Daniel, and because it was my mare's first foal, he's like, hey, we're the only ones that are going to give this guy a shot. And I'm like, you're right. We got to do this for Cat. Cat is the dam. And so we sell the mare, and we move forward with Guy Diamond. And he keeps getting better and better and better. And last year, as a 3-year-old, we won $56,000.
You won 56.
I won 52-ish or 51-ish, and Daniel won the rest.
That's
Daniel showed him once.
awesome.
And then Daniel just made the NRBC Open
Finals
on him. So
that's
when
awesome.
to not give up and when to look at that little guy and maybe readjust your strategy. That was the hardest sell, selling that mare. It was a very emotional sell for me because I really wanted to show, and I knew by selling her, I was taking a gamble with him. But I knew the long-term strategy for the training and for the mare and for, everything was to continue on with him because I had that guidance from Daniel. And it worked out. And so that's the thing that I want to pose is, like, when do you not give up? And maybe take a chance on the little guy, and go all the way through. listen to your advisors. You know, if you're going to trust them and put a horse with them and do that, you got to be able to listen and take it and admit when you're wrong. And
it's like you've battled through this or something.
Take a gut punch. I mean, there's a lot to it, you know. I mean, this horse sold for $1,000, sold for $35,000, which is way under racehorse standards, is whatever, third, fourth string in Baffert's, you know, training. And then the owners are like, I mean, the owner is like some sheik or something, enters him up. And look at what happened. Took a chance. So I think that there's something that we can learn there with our horses to maybe not always judge a book by its cover.
Totally. I think that's what's so beautiful about the futurity, too, in general, right? The Kentucky Derby, I think, represents that in racing, and there's obviously a few other of those races around that year that do for them. But just like the futurity does for us, it's anybody's game. I mean, it is anybody's
that's why
game.
I love the 3-year-olds.
Yeah, and I think that's why most of us love the 3-year. I mean, you'll never catch me riding a 3-year-old at futurity. Let's just be clear about that. But that's I love watching it and witnessing it and following the stories of those who are going and, you know, going to show and have shown across the year. And for me, being an announcer, I get to see a lot of those horses at the, you know, shows earlier in the year. And, you know, you see them in the warm-up classes, right, or the schooling classes, and you're like, right? And some of the ones that you're like, that's fancy, can't pull it together in 3 goes at the futurity. You know what I mean? Like, it is anybody's game. And the Kentucky Derby this year was another proof of that showing up in racing. And I think it's absolutely the same in reining. This is such a good conversation, too, because knowing that that's what an event like the futurity is, which is different than the Derby, which is different than maturities, which is different than a weekend horse show. How can we start thinking about producing events or creating environments where an event like a futurity for an incoming 3-year-old or 3-year-old horse, should that operate differently? Should that look differently? Should that be run differently? Should that have different culture than our weekend shows, than our Derby, than our, you know, than some of the other ones? Yeah, I think
and
there's...
even like looking at like the longevity of the
The horse,
horse.
absolutely.
I mean, that is such a big thing. And now that we've got 4 Derby years, looking at the longevity of the horse, it's okay if the horse doesn't make it as a 3-year-old, or maybe you do the pre-futurities, not the big one, and then you go into the Derbies. I mean, there are so many different options, and that's the thing is that I think that, and it's not like, I know that I just gave an example about a horse, but it's not giving up on you, the exhibitor. It's not giving up on your trainer. Like, you believe in their program and what they're doing. Like, there's so much behind it, you know? And I think that it's like different choices that you make and different riders. And
can we put an ask out to our audience? I would love to meet, maybe interview, maybe we can do some live interviews with people in our industry who have, whether it's a comeback story or a didn't give up story, right? They've hit some wall, whether that's with themselves, with their horse, with a program that they questioned throwing in the towel and giving up. Would you guys let us know? Drop us a comment. Send us a private message.
If you want to, be private. Send us a private message, right?
Yes. If you're that person, or if you know someone that is that person, let us know your story.
Yeah,
I would love to hear from you, and maybe we'll bring someone on here in the coming weeks and hear about the stories, because that is huge. And ultimately, I think that's why every reiner shows up in the ring, right, is because of that, the gumption, right? The keep going, the try, the partner with your horse and do something great against all odds.
I mean, and that's the thing is, I mean, sports in general. I was just having this conversation last night riding. Sports in general.
With yourself or?
No.
Just kidding.
It was with Carrie. This conversation was with Carrie. It's just like when you go show, like, it's like football players, basketball players, and I've read the books on these guys, and like, when they're not on the court or the field or the whatever, they're buddies.
Yeah.
They're buddies. When they step into that ring,
it's go time.
It's go time. You know, and it's out for blood. I mean, this is competition. It's fun, but we're here to compete.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that I think that we could learn a lot from different experiences. So if you
Yes.
do have that comeback story, we can all learn from each other. Someone might pull something. You might help someone not give up by sharing your story.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
or give someone the guts to keep going forward with their horse.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, let us know. Drop us a direct message. We're going to wrap it up. You guys, please, if you find interest in these conversations, drop your email at reinerstop.com. We want to keep you informed. Again, that's a no commitment offer. We just want to make sure that you know what's coming up and that you're informed as we continue to have these talks. We will let you know what's coming. We're going to be live next week, Wednesday? Thursday?
That's why I'm waiting on confirmation.
TBD.
It's going to be Wednesday or Thursday. Look for the event coming out on our Rainer Stop page. That will always be there. If you click interested or going, Facebook will notify you because we all get busy in our day.
Yep.
So it's always good to click that and be a part of it. And also, if you found this topic interesting or any of our other ones, we'd love a share, right? Share
Yes.
it right now while it's public because once it's private, it's going to be private. This is going to be tough. I shouldn't say tough. These conversations, what we're going to be doing.
Real. They're going to be real.
They're going to be real, right? And it's going to be with experts. It's going to be challenging status quo. It's going to be developing and encouraging each other. There's a lot. Learning. Oh, I'm so excited.
much. Yes.
Yeah.
Drop your email at reinerstop.com. Join us here this time next week. Of course, you can follow Sheley and I personally, Facebook and Instagram. You can find both of us. If you guys have questions, let us know. If you want to hear on any particular topics, let us know. We've got our next few weeks planned out, and then we're looking to you for what's coming next. Thank you guys. As always, we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.